Yes, it's 2-5. 2-5 Daily. Sports reports is ordered. Like, review, subscribe, do all the free things, do all the good things. Hey, Grandma, let's get right to it. So, we're coming up on football season, and not only am I talking about NFL, but we're talking about college football as well. And this is the second year in a row because, Sports Reports Disorder has only existed for a year and a half. So this is the second year in a row that I'm trying to determine who is this year's TCU. What do I mean by that? A team that comes out of nowhere, no one has them in the foresight, and they come through and make the conference championship game. Obviously, TCU made the playoff, but we're just going with conference title game. So last year, we decided to play this game and we landed on Louisville. Louisville was going to be the surprise team based off of their conference schedule. And lo and behold, Louisville ended up in the ACC title game against FSU. Now, we're going to try to see if we can go 2 for 2. So here we go. Who are my candidates? So let's eliminate some teams first because, Virginia Tech is getting a lot of hype this year. They're bringing back, all this production. Drones is back. Their defense is a little better. Coach Brent Pry is showing that he might have a little coaching aptitude, but I'm just not there. I'm just not there. They had a good game at Miami on a Friday night this year. They got Clemson coming into Lane Stadium. They got to play Rutgers, who they lost to last year. So Rutgers is candidate number one. So Rutgers last year was their first season over 500 and bowl win in 9 years. Greg Schiano is back chopping wood, one piece at a time. And it's one of those things, right? You're going to laugh at me. You're going to say Rutgers. Why would you say Rutgers? Well, Rutgers is not the answer to the question. They're just a candidate. Because if you look at their schedule, no Oregon, no Michigan, no Ohio State, no Penn State, none of that. So, so the path is there. Their starting schedule, Howard, Akron, and then they go to Lane Stadium to play Virginia Tech. Now, I do think Virginia Tech is going to win that game, get their revenge from last year. But last year, Rutgers beat them 35-16. They were 10th against the pass last year. So like they have a foundation here. They upgraded that quarterback with Ethan. I got to look at this because I can't say it. Ethan Kaliakmanis, from Minnesota, who's not the best quarterback in the world. But when you're coming off of what Rutgers had last year, you'll take it. So, they do go to Nebraska. Going to Lincoln Memorial Stadium is always hard, even though Nebraska hasn't made a bowl game in the last 8 years or so. That's a tough place to play. I expect Nebraska to be back this year. They could have been a candidate too, but I looked at their schedule. So, that's why they're not on this list. Number 2, Kansas, the Jayhawks from TCU's own conference, the Big 12. They got a little odd thing going on this year. They got some stadium renovations going on, so they're going to be playing their home games at Arrowhead Stadium this year. But the good news for Kansas is we saw the damage they did with Jason Bean at quarterback. Now they finally get Jalen Daniels back. If you remember 2 years ago, we had a big game on ESPN, TCU and Kansas, both of them undefeated. One of the better games of the season. Jalen Daniels has been out with back injuries. He's finally back, taking the world by storm. Kansas, great coach. 8th in rushing last year. They got 30 seniors coming back from a 9-win team last year. And on top of being a 9-win team last year, 3-point loss to Texas Tech, 4-point loss to K-State. So you reverse those, you're talking about an 11-win team playing Texas for the Big 12 title. And Texas would have been their only loss last season in this scenario that I'm presenting. So Kansas is on my list. Also in the Big 12, UCF, or as I like to call them, hashtag UC Facts. Gus Malzone's got that thing churning down there. So last year, John Reese Plumlee missed 3 games. They started 3-0, finished 3-7. We know about the game against Baylor, the Heartbreak Central, but also caught up in that season that people forget about. Oklahoma State, instead of Kansas, did play in the Big 12 championship game against Texas, and UCF put a 45-3 mud hole stomping on them. So, they got RJ Harvey back, 1,416 yards, UCF fourth rushing in the nation, and John Reese Plumlee is gone, but Gus Malzahn reached back home to the Razorbacks, and he's bringing in KJ Jefferson. So UCF is going to be somebody to reckon with in that conference this year. Oklahoma State's bringing back a lot of starters, so they're going to be a factor. You got Utah coming in. I think Utah's going to win the Big 12. You got K-State still present with Avery Johnson taking over for Will Howard. Arizona's coming in, albeit with a new head coach. So the Big 12 is going to be fun. There's 7 or 8 different teams that could win the conference, but UCF could be a pick to get to the Big 12 championship game. And then finally, the Wolfpack, NC State. They did beat Clemson last year. They, went on their run last year to close out the season. Dave Doran, one of the best coaches in the ACC. Upgrade at quarterback, Brendan Armstrong out, Grayson McCall in. You might remember him from Coastal Carolina. Now, he has been hurt. So, that's got to be part of the calculus here, just like with Jalen Daniels. But they do have freshman of the year, Kevin Concepcion, coming back, and he's the only player in the nation, 750 receiving yards, 250 rushing yards. Take with that as you will. They did lose Peyton Wilson to the NFL. I feel he was the best defensive player in the ACC, not named Jared Verse, but I trust Tony Gibson. He's had that defense playing hard for the last few years, and they just kind of retool. Now, the problem is they go to Clemson. You know what I'm saying? But they have won 2 out of the last 3 against Clemson. Both of those at home, of course. Then they got a game in week 2 against the Volunteers. Neutral site up in Charlotte. Just saying, Amayea, it's his second game of the season. So he's going to be a little wet behind the ears. Can NC State get pressure on him, force him into some early freshman mistakes that he won't make later in the year, right? But guess what? NC State has the Louisville thing going on. No FSU, no Miami, no Virginia Tech this year, even though they beat Virginia Tech last year. So just looking at schedule, I think NC State has a chance. So this is the thing, right? Get through Clemson on September 21st. They go to Clemson, like I mentioned. Even if they don't get through that game, I feel like they should win every other ACC game on their schedule. NC State could make the ACC title game the way that Louisville did last year. Louisville's going to have a good defense this year that could get them back in position again, but I'm not so sure about the quarterback situation. Tyler Shuck, he's even more injured, than Grayson McCall. So as you put it all together, look at all the candidates, shake them up, roll it up, and I'm going with the Jayhawks to make the Big 12 championship game against Utah. Who do you think is going to be this year's TCU? Come out of nowhere, shock the world. Let me know. Like, review, subscribe.